Tonight, I'll take you back in time. Before your name was spoken. Before the lands you know were drawn on maps. To a place of ancient stone and desert winds. To a land called Sumer, where gods whispered in the ears of kings, and dreams shaped the fate of men. There, between the twin rivers of the Tigris and the Euphrates, stood a shining city called Uruk. Its walls were tall and thick, so wide that 3 chariots could race side by side along the top. Its temples were carved with stories, its streets lined with golden lamps and stone gardens, and its ruler was a man named Gilgamesh. He was no ordinary king. They said he was 2/3 divine and 1/3 man, tall as a cedar tree, strong as 10 lions, wise as the scribes who copied the words of the gods onto clay tablets. His skin glowed like burnished bronze in the sun, and yet, in his heart, there was a quiet emptiness. You see, Gilgamesh had everything: wealth, strength, the love of his people, but he had no one to call his equal. No friend who could match him in mind or body, no soul who could sit beside him under the stars and listen, not because he was king, but because he was simply Gilgamesh. He built temples for the gods, yes. He carved laws in stone, protected his city from invaders, and gave the people water when the rivers ran dry. But in his private hours, when the sun went down and the wind turned cool, Gilgamesh paced alone. His feet longed for the wild places. His soul ached for something he couldn't name. And so, like many great kings, he grew restless. He began to test his people, challenging men to races they could never win, setting tasks for builders that could not be finished in time. He was not cruel, exactly, but he was hungry. For purpose, for meaning. For someone who could walk beside him, not behind him. The people of Uruk began to whisper prayers, not for crops, not for peace, but for the gods to send the king, a companion. And the gods listened, not with thunder, not with fire, but with something gentler, a whisper through the trees, a stirring in the wilderness. Far away from Uruk, deep in the grassy edges of the world, something moved, something wild, something not yet shaped by cities or laws, and soon, Gilgamesh's life would change forever. Gentle thought before sleep. Even the strongest hearts long for connection. Even kings cannot rule alone. Tonight as you rest, know that your quiet longing, your desire to be seen, to be known, is not weakness. It is what makes you whole. Close your eyes, dear dreamer. Let the desert winds blow soft around you, and wait for the wild friend who comes in silence. Herb Part 2. Enkidu, the wildman of the forest. Far from the shining gates of Uruk, where the tamarisk trees whispered over streams and the reeds danced in the wind, something stirred. In the wide open grasslands, where no walls enclosed the sky, there lived a man not made by any city, nor shaped by any king. His name was Enkidu. He ran with the antelope, drank from the river's mouth, and slept beneath the stars with only the wind as his blanket. His hair was long, like a lion's mane. His eyes were fierce but kind. His skin was the color of earth after rain, wild, alive, untamed. He knew no language but the rustle of the forest, no law but the rhythm of nature. He belonged to the hills, to the soil, to the breath of creation itself. The gods had made him with purpose, to be the balance, to be the answer to the people's prayer, to meet the king who was both mighty and alone, blank, blank. In Uruk, Gilgamesh still wandered his halls, restless and grand. But in the fields, Enkidu chased gazelles and pulled fish from the stream with his hands. He drank beside lions, curled beside wolves. And the people who tended flocks began to speak of him. A creature walks like a man but wild as a god. He breaks our traps, frees the animals, dances under moonlight. The whispers reached the ears of Gilgamesh. But it wasn't anger that stirred in the king. It was curiosity. He ordered a trapper to bring the man in. But the trapper returned pale, shaken. "He is not like us," he said. "He does not fear us. He does not want what we want." And so the king thought, and decided. Then we must show him our world. Let him taste it. Let him feel it. Let him choose. They sent a woman, not a soldier, not a priest. Her name was Shamhat. She was gentle, wise, a weaver of stories and silences. She went to the forest, where Enkidu drank at the spring. She sat beside him, not with fear but with presence. She sang. She told him of music, and bread, and warm oil baths. She told him of cities, and of friendship. And slowly, Enkidu listened. He came with her, not because he was captured, but because something in her voice reminded him of something old, something waiting. And so it was that Enkidu entered Uruk. The people gathered in wonder. They had never seen such a man, barefoot, bold, hair wild like a horse's tail. And then he met Gilgamesh. Two mighty souls, one shaped by kingship, one shaped by nature. They stood before each other. No crown, no robe, no army could stand between them. At first they clashed. They wrestled, not with hatred, but with spirit. Like the wind meeting the mountain, like the river pressing against the bank. And when the dust settled, they both laughed. For the first time, Gilgamesh laughed, not as a king but as a man. And Enkidu smiled, not as a wild thing, but as a brother. They were opposites. They were mirrors. They were friends. From that day on, they were never apart. They explored temples together. They watched the stars from rooftops. They hunted lions, then sat beside poets. They chased adventure but found something deeper, companionship. Together, they dreamed. And together, they would change the world. But fate, as it always does, was listening. And it had already begun its quiet weaving. Gentle thought before sleep. Sometimes, the one who balances you comes from the wildest place. Sometimes, we find our truest selves in the eyes of another. Tonight, know this. You don't have to be like everyone else to be loved. You don't have to belong to the world to matter in it. Close your eyes. Let the wind of the wild brush your face. And welcome the friend who walks beside you, even in dreams. Part 3, The Loss That Broke the King. There was a time when nothing could stand against them. Gilgamesh and Enkidu, king and wildman, brothers in all but blood. Together, they were like two stars crossing the heavens, their fire unmatched. They built temples, they tamed forests, they defeated monsters that had haunted the dreams of men for generations. Together, they ventured to the cedar forest where Humbaba, the great guardian beast, watched over the sacred trees planted by the gods themselves. It was said, no mortal man had dared enter those woods. But Gilgamesh and Enkidu did. They fought not only with strength, but with courage. They felled the guardian. They took sacred cedar. They returned to Uruk as heroes. The people rejoiced. Songs were written, statues carved. But not all were pleased. Far above, in the halls of the gods, whispers stirred. They are too bold, one said. They kill with impunity, another murmured. They act like gods. And the goddess Ishtar, furious at Gilgamesh for spurning her affection, called for vengeance. They must learn. Mortals must remember they are mortal. The gods met in silence, and a judgment was made. They would not strike the king, but his heart. They would take Enkidu, blank, underscore, blank. It began with a fever, just a small warmth in the night. But within days his skin burned like fire, his breath grew shallow, his laughter faded. Gilgamesh sat beside him, helpless. He called for healers, priests, offerings. He wept before the temple doors. He begged the gods in the dark hours. Take me, he whispered. Not him. He is the better part of me. But the gods did not answer. And Enkidu, the wild man, the forest soul, the lion-hearted, was gone. Blank, underscore, blank. The world felt silent after. Not just the city, not just the palace, but inside Gilgamesh. He walked the streets like a ghost. He no longer touched his food. He no longer listened to music. The throne, once warm, now felt like stone. The people did not know what to say. This was their king. Mighty, brave, the voice of Uruk. And now, he looked like a child, lost in the dark. He buried Enkidu with his own hands. He carved a great tomb, high on the riverbank, where the wind would always sing. But still, the grief did not leave him, and something darker began to grow beside it. Fear. Dandas, blank, underscore, blank. For the first time Gilgamesh saw that even the strongest could die. Even the boldest. Even the kindest. If Enkidu can be taken, he said, so can I. He could not sleep. The shadows of the night whispered things he did not want to hear. He would die. His bones would rest in dust. His name would fade. It haunted him, not because he feared pain, but because he feared being forgotten. All his strength, all his victories, were they enough? Would they last? Or would time swallow him, like it had swallowed his friend? Blank, underscore, blank. And so, Broken by grief, and terrified of the end, Gilgamesh made a choice. He would go on a journey. Not for conquest, not for fame, but for something deeper. He would seek out the one man who had escaped death, a man named Utnapishtim, the only mortal granted eternal life by the gods. He would ask how it was done. He would find the secret. He would overcome fate itself. And so, one morning, as the sun rose gently over the rooftops of Uruk, Gilgamesh, king, hero, mourner, set out alone, beyond the gates, beyond the rivers, into the wild, to chase the ghost of immortality. Garnam, blank, underscore, blank, gentle thought before sleep. Grief changes us. It opens doors we never meant to walk through. It shows us how fragile we are, and how deeply we love. Tonight, if your heart is heavy, know this. You are not broken, you are becoming. Let your breath carry the name of someone you miss. Let it go softly into the night, and let the stars remind you, what we love never truly leaves. Part 4. The Journey Beyond the World. The desert stretched like an endless sea, golden and silent by day, cold and silver by night. Gilgamesh walked alone, the sandals of a king now dusty and worn. His royal robe, once crimson and embroidered with gold thread, had faded in the sun and frayed at the edges. He was no longer a ruler here. He was a man, one of flesh and breath, chasing shadows across a horizon that never seemed closer. And yet, he pressed on. Kisjans, blank, underscore blank, he crossed valleys where the winds spoke in ancient tongues. He climbed mountains whose peaks scratched the belly of the sky. He wandered through forests where no bird sang, where even the trees seemed to sleep. The people he met offered little more than silence. A shepherd gave him bread. A child gave him water. An old woman offered only a glance and the words, "Not all things are meant to be known, king." But still he searched. Kilantation. Blank, underscore blank. Weeks passed. And one morning just before dawn, he came to the edge of a vast cliff. There, guarding a dark tunnel between the mountains, stood two scorpion beings, tall as towers, half human, half beast. Their eyes were like burning coals. Their tails curled with poison that could melt stone. They were the keepers of the path to the other world. Gilgamesh stood tall, though his heart pounded like a war drum. The male spoke first. "Who dares come here?" Gilgamesh bowed low, not as a king, but as a man. "I am Gilgamesh of Uruk," he said. "I seek Utnapishtim, the one who lives forever." The female narrowed her eyes. "This is the path of no return," she said. "Even light fears it. Mortal minds break in its darkness. What do you hope to find?" He looked at her with steady eyes. "I seek what was stolen. I seek to understand what death has taken." There was a pause. Then, the two guardians stepped aside. "Go," they said. "But know this, the answers you find may not be the ones you seek." And with that, Gilgamesh stepped into the tunnel of darkness. Korchi, blank, underscore blank. Inside there was no sound. No bird. No echo. Not even the whisper of his own breath. He felt as though he were floating. Time folded in on itself. One moment stretched like clay, another slipped through like sand. But he walked. One step. Then another. Until, far ahead, a faint glow appeared. Then warmth. Then light. Then the scent of salt. Blank, underscore, blank. At last he emerged. And there before him was a garden, unlike anything he had ever seen. Trees of crystal, leaves of glowing lapis, branches dripping with golden fruit, and beyond it all, the sea of death. A still black ocean with no wind, no waves. Just silence, stretching to the edge of the world. There, on a shore of ash and pearl, stood a small hut. Inside was a woman named Sidori, keeper of the tavern at the end of the world. She welcomed him kindly, offered him bread and wine, listened to his story as he spoke of Enkidu, of grief, of dreams and fear. When he finished, she poured another cup and said softly, "Gilgamesh, you chase what cannot be caught." He looked up. "But Utnapishtim found it," she nodded. "He did, but not by chasing." She looked out at the sea. "Only one can cross the waters of death. His name is Urshanabi. Find him, if you must." And so Gilgamesh did. He found the boatman in a grove of reeds, mending a black ship with silent hands. Gilgamesh begged for passage. and after a long pause, Urshanabi agreed. But first, they had to cut poles. Long, strong reeds that would push the boat through the deadly waters, for the waters of death could not be touched by hand, not even by gods. So they worked. For days they chopped and carried and prepared, and then they sailed into the black, into the unknown, toward the man who held the secret. Seculata, blank's gentle thought, before sleep. We all carry questions deeper than language. We walk paths no one else can see. And sometimes we journey far, just to find what's been inside us all along. Tonight, know this: even in darkness you are moving. Even in stillness you are growing. Let go of needing the answer. Let your breath be your guide, and sail gently onward. Part 5. The Waters of Death. The boat creaked softly as it glided over the still black sea. No wind moved. No birds called. The air was heavy with silence. Gilgamesh stood at the bow, his hands clenched around the first of many reed poles. Each one needed to push the boat forward without ever touching the waters themselves. For these were no ordinary waters. They were the waters of death, so cursed, so sacred, that a single touch could dissolve bone, silence breath, and turn even the strongest into shadow. Beside him, Urshanabi, the ancient boatman, said nothing. He had ferried only one man before across these waters. And now, once again, the oarless ship cut through the mirror-dark sea. Each pole was used once, pressed against the depths, then discarded. One pole, then another, and another. The sea swallowed them silently, without splash, without thanks. And all the while Gilgamesh thought of Enkidu, his laughter, his stories. The way his presence had made the world feel more alive. The pain in his chest had dulled with the days, but it had not left. It walked beside him now, like a shadow that would not part. "I'm coming for the truth," he whispered into the still air. "I will not leave without it." Tail. Blank. At last, when the final pole was gone, and the horizon still seemed far, Gilgamesh fell to his knees in the boat, exhausted, but Urshanabi simply pointed ahead. A shimmer, a thin line where water met land, a shore of pale stones and vines. And there, on that distant edge of the world, stood a quiet figure beneath a fig tree. Utnapishtim. He was no taller than any other man. His beard was grey, and his eyes held the weight of ages. His skin was weathered like old wood, but his breath was calm and steady. He looked at Gilgamesh not with awe, not with fear, but with understanding. "So," he said softly, "the boy king has come at last." Gilgamesh fell before him. Not like a subject before a god, but like a grieving son at the feet of an elder. "I have walked deserts," he said. "Fought monsters, crossed mountains, faced the gods, and lost my truest friend. Tell me, wise one, how did you escape death?" Utnapishtim nodded slowly. And then, he told the story. "Long ago," he said, "the gods grew tired of mankind. Our noise, our wars, our endless hunger. So they sent a great flood to wipe the world clean. But one god ear whispered to me. He said, 'Build a boat, save your family, save the animals, save what must be saved.' So I built it, a massive ark of wood and pitch. I sealed it tight. I gathered seeds and beasts, songs and scrolls. And the rains came. For 7 days the heavens wept. The earth drowned, mountains vanished beneath waves. But my boat floated, and when the storm ended, I released a dove. Then a raven. And finally, we came to rest on a mountain. The gods saw what we had done. They were angry. But Ea reminded them, we were only human. And so, they relented. They granted me and my wife one gift, immortality, a life untouched by time, to remember what was lost. Gilgamesh listened, wide-eyed. Then tell me, he begged, how can I find this same gift? I have walked to the edge of the world. I have paid every price. Utnapishtim shook his head. It is not a gift to be claimed, he said. The gods gave it once. They will not again. Gilgamesh's heart sank. He looked to the black water, where the waves didn't move. Was this the end of his journey? Was this all? But Utnapishtim raised a hand gently. "There is one thing you may try," he said. "Deep in the waters near this shore, hidden among thorns, grows a flower, a small radiant bloom. It has no name, but it holds the power to restore youth. Not forever, but for a long, long time. Many would mistake it for a weed, but it sings when touched, and its scent is like memory." Gilgamesh stood. "Where do I find it?" Utnapishtim smiled faintly. "You must dive." And so, Gilgamesh tied heavy stones to his ankles. He stepped to the edge of the water, took one breath, and let himself sink, down through the black, down past ancient coral and glowing fish, down through the cold silence. And then, there it was, a single flower, glowing gently, hidden in a curl of thorn. He reached for it. The moment he touched its stem, he felt warmth flood through him. He rose. And when he broke the surface, he held it high. The flower of immortality. ___ gentle thought. Before sleep, we often chase forever. We want to freeze joy, hold on to those we love, capture time like a bird in a cage. But even the gods know what lives must breathe, what breathes must change. Tonight, let yourself float. You don't need to hold on so tightly. What's meant for you will never be lost. Let your dreams bloom slowly. Let the waters carry you gently. 6. The flower of immortality. The wind on the shore was warm, and the flower in Gilgamesh's hand pulsed with life. Its petals were soft and bright, shimmering with a quiet glow, like starlight trapped inside a rose. It didn't look powerful. It didn't roar, or spark, or shine like gold. But it hummed in his palm. Its scent reminded him of distant things. The laughter of Enkidu beside a campfire, his mother's hand smoothing his hair, the stillness of night over the rooftops of Uruk. This was no ordinary bloom. This was memory, and promise, and hope. Day, blank, _ blank. Gilgamesh sat down beneath a fig tree. He looked out at the sea, then back at the flower. For the first time in many days, he smiled. "With this," he whispered, "I can return home. I will give it to my people. I will share it. We will grow old no more. I will not lose another friend, another soul." And yet, as he sat, exhaustion crept into his bones. His muscles ached. His eyes grew heavy. So he stood, walked a little farther along the shore, and found a cool spring bubbling up from between the rocks. It was clear and sweet, surrounded by smooth stones and leafy vines, the kind of place where the gods might once have bathed. He set the flower carefully on the ground beside the spring, wrapped in a cloth of linen. Then he stepped into the water. Let it wash the dust from his feet. Let it soothe the scars on his arms. Let it carry the ache of his long, long journey. He closed his eyes, let out a breath, and felt peace. Dandas, Bixbay Karidi Kareri. Lili Karidas, Lidi Kariti Karidas Kareri. Karidas, Danjas Garidas. Lili Kareri. Mati, Karidas Garidas. But he did not hear the soft sound behind him. Danjas Evil Highly Das, but he did not see the snake sliding over the warm rocks. It moved quietly, smoothly, as if it had done this many times before. Its eyes glittered, not with malice, but with instinct, and it smelled the flower, the magic, the sweetness, the warmth of life itself. It slithered to the cloth, touched it gently with its tongue, and in a single fluid motion, swallowed the flower whole. Then, as Gilgamesh rinsed his hands in the spring, the snake shed its skin. A new skin, glossy, shining, fresh, peeled away the old, and the serpent disappeared into the grass. By the time Gilgamesh turned around, the flower was gone. Blank, blank. He stared at the empty cloth. He searched the grass. He looked under the stones. He called out, though there was no one to answer. And then, he sat his knees in the dirt, his hands shaking. The gift was gone. All his travel, all his pain, all his hope, gone in the blink of a moment. He didn't shout. He didn't rage. He just sat, let the breeze pass through him, let the sun fall lower in the sky, and slowly he understood. Dao skridigause, gone shout. Dao blank, blank. It had never truly been about the flower. Yes, he had touched it. Yes, he had held it. But the gift, the real gift, had already been growing inside him. It had been in the path, in the grief, in the mountains, in the old woman's song, in the garden, in the boat. In the moment he dove beneath the surface and reached out for something greater than himself. Immortality was not about never dying. It was about living deeply, and loving fully, and letting go when it was time. He stood, a little taller, a little older, a little wiser, and he turned toward home. Blank, gentle thought before sleep. Sometimes what we think we need is taken from us, only so we can learn we never needed it to begin with. Sometimes, the gift is not the treasure, but the path we walked to find it. Tonight, close your eyes. Breathe in the story that is still becoming you. And if something has left you, a dream, a person, a wish, trust that something else will grow in its place. Let go, and let peace take root. Part 7. The Lesson in the Dust. The road to Uruk stretched long and golden under the setting sun. Gilgamesh walked it slowly now. No longer as a king returning in glory, but as a man returning in quiet reflection. His steps were steady, his shoulders broad, but something in his eyes had changed. Not dimmed, but softened. He passed through the same hills and groves he once crossed in haste, but this time he noticed them. The way the olive trees leaned in the breeze, the way birds dipped into the river for their evening meal. He no longer asked for the gods to reveal their secrets. He no longer begged the stars for answers, because now he understood. The truth was never far away. It had always been in the spaces between each breath. In laughter shared, in the ache of love, in the kindness of strangers, and in the memory of a friend who once ran wild through the forest and wrestled lions by his side. Charing blank. When he reached the gates of Uruk, the people gathered in silence. They had heard nothing for many weeks, only rumors that their king had vanished, chased the gods, crossed the world. Now here he was, not dressed in finery, not shining with jewels, but still strong, and calm, and changed. He said nothing at first, only looked out across the walls he once built, the city he once ruled like a restless storm. He saw the rooftops, the temple towers, the gardens, the children chasing each other through narrow streets, the smell of fresh bread from clay ovens, the sound of old women singing to the gods as they pounded grain. This was immortality. Not in a flower, not in the breathless halls of heaven, but here, in life. In this, blank, Gilgamesh climbed the steps of the temple of Anu. He looked out across the land, and then, he wrote. Not a law, not a command, but a story. On tablets of clay, he carved his journey, not to be worshipped, but to be remembered. He wrote of Enkidu, of friendship, of loss, of fear, of seeking, of failing, and finally, of understanding. He sealed the tablets, buried them in the walls of Uruk, where they would be found one day, when the world was ready to hear them. And in doing so, he became immortal, not in body, but in memory. And perhaps tonight, as you lie here, warm beneath your blanket, listening to the quiet rhythm of the dark, you too are part of that memory, a thread in the tapestry, a voice in the long song, a listener to an ancient truth. My sigh, final gentle thought before sleep. You are not meant to last forever. But that does not mean you are small. You are here, you are real, you are part of a story older than kings, and deeper than the sea. You will be remembered in the way you touch others, in the way you love, in the way you keep walking, even when the road is long. Close your eyes now. Let the stars of old Mesopotamia drift softly above you. And remember, you are enough, you are seen, you are part of the dream.